सो चैप्टर 3 इंट्रोडक्शन टू C++, उसमें हम फंक्शंस देखने वाले हैं. सो टुडे वी लर्न द फंक्शंस. First of all, introductions: how to define a function, how to declare a function, how to call a function, means define a function, function declaration, calling a function, then function arguments, important points about the functions, sample example, recursion, फंक्शन ओवरलोडिंग एंड इनलाइन फंक्शंस. ये पॉइंट्स हम वन बाय वन देखने वाले हैं. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल द इंट्रोडक्शन. So a function is a group of statements that together perform a task. Every C++ program has at least one function which is main, and all the most trivial program can be defined additional functions. You can divide up your code into separate function. How you divide up your code among different function and is up to you. But logically the division usually is such that each function perform a specific task and function block of code which only runs when it is called. Okay, and a function is self-contained block of statement that perform a particular task. They must be developed separately and tested. A name is given to each function and we can specify the method of sending data to it. The functions may be linked together, and so function can be classified into two categories. First is a library function and second one is the user defined function. So library functions are predefined function. These functions are not required to be written by us. The code for this function is readily available. You can use this function in your program. When we use this function in program, we need to include the corresponding header file header file with .h extensions in the program in which the code for function is defined. And next one is the user defined function. So it is developed by the programmer. These are developed as per the need of the program. After development, it can be part of C++ program library. The main function is an example of the user defined functions. So it is the introduction of a function. So next one is the define a function. How to define a function. The general form of C++ function definition as follows. So return type, function name, and in bracket parameter list, that is the argument. And next one is the body of the functions. Okay, body part आएगा उसमें, part of the body. So return type, function name, parameter list, that is the argument, and part of the body, that is the body of the functions. So ये syntax है how to define a function. ये याद रखना, how to define a function. So return type, पहले return type आएगा, after that function name आएगा, जो आपको देना है वो function name देना है, after that parameter list, that is the argument, and body of the functions. So a function define the definitions describe how the function computes the value it returns. The function definition consists of a function header written as the same way as the function prototype, except that the header does not have a semicolon and at end. And the function body consists of declaration and executable statements enclosed within a pair of brackets. The function body is similar to that main part of the program. And suppose when a function is called in main, okay, when a function is called in main function, the value to formal parameter are passed, and then the statement in body of functions are executed. So यहाँ पे explanation दिया है return types. So a function may return a value. The return type is that data type of the value the function returns, and some function perform the desired operation without returning a value. In this case, the return type is keyword void. Okay, and next one is the function name. This is the actual name of the function. The function name and the parameter list together constitute the function signatures. And next one is the parameters. Parameter is like a placeholder. When a function is invoked, you pass a value to the parameter. This value is referred to as the actual parameter or argument. The parameter list refers to the type, order, and number of the parameters of a functions. So parameters are optional, that is the function may contains the no parameters. So next one is the body of the functions. The function body contains the collection of statement that defines what the function does. So how to define a function? Return type, function name, parameter libs, that is the argument, and next after bracket body of the function, that is the part of the body. Okay, how to define a function. Now next, function declaration. So how to declare a function? Function declaration tells the compiler about a function name and how to call the function. The actual body of the function can be defined separately. A function declaration has the following parts like return type, function name, parameter list. Okay, parameter names are not important in function declaration, only their type is required. Okay, function declaration में parameter is not important but return type, that is their type is required. Function declaration is required when you define a function in one source file and you call that function in another file. Okay, in such case you should declare the function at the top of the file calling the functions. आपको function name देना ही है, so you should declare the function at the top of the file calling the function. Now next is the calling a function. How to call a function? So a function can be called in main by writing main function by writing the name of the function. While creating a C++ function, you give definition of what the function has to do. To use a function, you will have to call or invoke that functions, and when a program call a function, program control is transferred to the calling functions. A call function define a task, and when it returns the statement is executed, or when its function ending or closing bracket is reached, it returns the program control back to the main program. To call a function, you simply need to pass the required parameters along with the function name, and if function returns a value, then you can store the returning value. So it is very simple how to call a function. First of all, define a function, then declare a function, and next one is the calling a function. Now functions arguments. So if a function is use argument, it must declare a variable that accept the values of the arguments, and these variables are called as a formal parameters of the functions. So while calling a function, there are two ways that argument can be passed to a function. First one is the call by value, second is the call by pointer, and third is the call by reference. So in call by value, this method copies the actual value of an argument into formal parameters of the functions. In case changes made to the parameter inside, the function have no effect on the arguments. Next one is the call by pointer. So this method copies the address of an argument into the formal parameters inside the function. The address is used to access the actual argument used in the call. This means that changes made to the parameter affect to the arguments. And last one is the call by reference. So this method copies the reference of an argument into the formal parameters. So inside the function, the reference is used to access the actual argument used in the call. This means that changes made to the parameter affect the arguments. So next one, it is some important points about the function. So every C++ program has a function called main that is called by operating system when a user runs in the program. Next one is the every function has a return type. If function doesn't return any value, the void is used as a return type. In C++, function can return any type except the arrays and function. We can get around this limitation by returning pointer to array or pointer to the functions. And there are some importance. If in C++ program a function is called before its declaration, then the C++ compiler automatically assumes the declarations of that functions in the following ways: int, integer, that is the return type, then function name. Okay, and in that case, if the return type of that function is different than int, compiler would show an error. So there are the some important points there about the functions, and there are the also some advantages of functions. The advantages of functions are easy to write, correct small function for small tasks, easy to read, easy to write, and easy and debugger functions, and the maintenance and modification of function is easier, and the length of source program can be reduced by using the functions at appropriate places, and functions once developed may be used by many other programs, so it avoids the rewrite the same code again and again. So these are the some advantages of functions. So next one is the sample example. So we will see, सपोज फॉर एग्जाम्पल एडिशन ऑफ टू नंबर्स, आपको टू नंबर्स ऐड करना है. सो इट इज़ ए एग्जाम्पल ऑफ फंक्शन. सो प्रोग्राम टू ऐड टू नंबर्स यूजिंग अ फंक्शन. सो हैश इंक्लूड आईओ स्ट्रीम. सो ये हेडर फाइल है, आपको डिफाइन करना है, प्रैक्टिकल में हम देखेंगे. सो नाउ डिक्लेयर अ फंक्शन. सो इंटीजर add is the integer is a return type, add is the function name, int a in bracket int a or int b, it is a parameter list or argument. So return a plus b, that is the addition of two numbers. Now next, int main. In main functions, int is the int sum, that is the variable, and calling the function and storing the return value in sum. So sum is call the function. So sum is equal to add 100 or 78. So cout 100 plus 78, that is the answer should be 178, we know that. So sum is print करना है. So cout sum return 0 and end of the प्रोग्राम. सो ये हम वन बाय वन देखेंगे प्रैक्टिकल में. सो ये जस्ट सैम्पल एग्जांपल दिखाया आपको, ऐसे फंक्शन आपको डिफाइन करना है, डिक्लेयर करना है एंड कॉल करना है. सो इट इज़ एग्जांपल ऑफ फंक्शंस एडिशन ऑफ टू नंबर्स. So recursion, when a function is called within the same function, it is known as the recursion in C++. The function which calls the same functions is known as a recursive function. A function that calls itself and doesn't perform any task after the function call is known as a tail recursion. In tail recursion, we generally call the same function with return statement. Let's see the simple example of recursion. So recursion functions, and next in after that brackets, curly brackets, recursion function, that is the calling self functions, and end of the brackets. So in C++ it is possible for the functions to call themselves. A function is called recursive if a statement within the body of the functions calls the same function, and recursion is the process of defining something in terms of itself, and in recursion a process of chaining occurs, and recursion sometimes is also called as a circular definition. In some cases, recursion is an efficient programming techniques. It reduces the size of code, and it is very simple examples of recursion is the recursive functions which computes for example factors, which computes the factorial of number. So the number factorial of number is n, is the product of all whole numbers between 1 and n. For example, 4 factorial is 1 into 2 into 3 into 4, that is the 24. The factors function is show. We can see the example. So next one is the function overloading. So in CPP two functions can have the same name if the function name and or type of arguments pass is different, and these functions having the same name but different arguments. It is a most important function overloading, the function having the same name but different arguments as are known as a overloaded function. For example, int test is the function name, and parameter is int a, int double a, int a or double a. There are the different arguments, but here function name is same. So सेम नेम बट डिफरेंट आर्गूमेंट्स, यहाँ पे आर्गूमेंट्स अलग अलग है लेकिन जो फंक्शन का नेम है वो सेम है. सो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज ए सेम नेम बट डिफरेंट आर्गूमेंट्स इन फंक्शन ओवरलोडिंग. So return type of all these four functions are not the same. Overloaded function may or may not have the different return types, but they must have a different arguments. So in real life, many times we use the same name to perform the similar actions. For example, whether we are determining the absolute value of an integer or float or double, we call it as determinations of absolute value of number, as we are aware that if the type of the number change, the actions to be performed gets different, but overall the general purpose of action remain same. Suppose we are determining the minimum of numbers, you may write a set of actions which determines the minimum of two numbers, another set of actions which determines the minimum of three numbers, and yet the another set of action which determines the minimum of four numbers. The set of action is different but overall their general purpose is same. बट इन सिंपल वे आप सिर्फ याद रखना फंक्शन, व्हाट इज़ द फंक्शन ओवरलोडिंग, सेम नेम बट डिफरेंट आर्गुमेंट्स. सो यहाँ पे हाउ टू, सो यहाँ पे देखो इंट टेस्ट, इंट मीन्स रिटर्न टाइप है जो, और टेस्ट मीन्स फंक्शन नेम. सो फंक्शन नेम यहाँ पे फंक्शन जो भी एग्जांपल दिए हुए उसमें सारे फंक्शन नेम सेम है. टेस्ट is the function name, it is similar to 4 to 5 example and but different arguments. लेकिन यहाँ पे जो argument दिए हुए हैं int a और डबल ए और int a डबल b, यहाँ पे जो arguments है वो अलग अलग है. so that is the same name but different arguments. so आपको पूछेंगे इंटरव्यू में what is the function overloading, so आपको सिर्फ ये बताना है same name but different arguments or different parameters. Inline function, C++ provides the inline function to reduce the functions call overloaded. It is a very simple. Inline function is function that is expanded in line when it is called. When the inline function is called, whole code of the inline function get inserted or substituted at that point of inline function call. The substitution is performed by the C++ compiler at compile time. Inline function may increase the efficiency if it is a small. So the syntax for defining the function inline is इनलाइन. यहाँ पे देखो रिटर्न टाइप के पहले इनलाइन लिखना है, ये सिंटैक्स है. इनलाइन देन रिटर्न टाइप, आफ्टर दैट फंक्शन नेम एंड पैरामीटर लिस्ट, आफ्टर दैट द फंक्शन कोड जो होगा वो हमें वहाँ पे लिखना है. सो इनलाइन कहाँ डिक्लेयर करना है हमें, रिटर्न टाइप के पहले. वो वर्ड है इनलाइन कीवर्ड, सो आपको सिर्फ वहाँ पे लिखना है रिटर्न टाइप के पहले, और एज इट इज़ फंक्शन का जो सिंटैक्स है वो आपको लिखना है. सो इनलाइन फंक्शंस प्रोवाइड द फॉलोइंग सम एडवांटेजेस. So functions call overhead doesn't occur. It also saves the overhead of push or pop variables on the stack when the function is called. It also save overhead of a return call from a functions, and when you inline function you may enable compiler to perform context specific optimization on the body of a function. And so next one is a next lecture में हम pointers देखेंगे. So we'll see in next lecture. So thank you.